Hey, this is Erin, and I am so excited to talk to you for these next 3 video series about marriage. I am a mom and a wife of 3 young girls, and I am just so passionate about having a healthy, strong marriage. And I was blessed to have an amazing example growing up with my parents. They had a phenomenal marriage, and growing up, that's just what I thought was normal. Until then, I got to college and started seeing friends in relationships and seeing people get married and seeing friends have concerns like, did I marry the right person? And I didn't realize that not everyone had what my parents had. And I knew growing up that if I had half of what my parents had, I'd have a phenomenal marriage. And so through that example and through different conferences and seminars and trainings and things that my husband and I have been through, I just feel very passionate about sharing about this because unfortunately I do have friends who are struggling in their marriage or who have gotten divorced, and it's hard. It's not an easy thing. And so I wanted to focus today on priorities in a marriage, and there are going to be 4 topics that I talk about today. And then what I would love for you to do is I'd love feedback, okay? So I will be sending you an email after this, and I want to make sure that we're engaging, and I am very excited to see your feedback and to talk about these things. So I will occasionally probably look down at my notes just because I don't want to forget everything, and I don't want these videos to be super long either. So we'll see how this goes. I'm going to jump right in. So again, we're talking about marriage priorities today. There are 4 things I'm going to talk about. If you do not have a paper and pen, go grab one really quick because you're going to want to write these down, because I do encourage you as I go through these videos to talk to your spouse about them, run some ideas by them, and just kind of see how your spouse is feeling about some of these things too. Because remember, what I am telling you is through experience and what I've learned. It's not the end all be all, right? So you kind of have to take what I'm saying, and the best part about it is making it a conversation with your spouse. Okay, so number 1 priority should be your relationship with God. Period. End of statement. Okay, number 1 has to be first your relationship with God, because if that is not first, other things you'll have more stress. You just will. And the issue is because if you are both rooted in your faith and you put God first, then I feel like some of these other issues that come up, you have the same baseline for where things should start from. So now, some of you might not be in a spot where your spouse is where you're at spiritually, or maybe they don't believe, okay? I get that. So if you're in that spot, then you need to focus on your relationship with God, making sure that you are being a godly wife and a godly woman. So make sure, if you can be on the journey together, make sure you're spending time in the word reading. Now, you don't have to read at the same time, obviously, but make sure that you're both reading, or at least that you are. Make sure you're studying God's word, not just reading it, but studying it. Make sure you're spending time in prayer, and you're asking God for guidance in your life. Now, I'm not going to say that we're perfect in all of these areas, okay? We all need to work on this. We need to work on praying together, because unfortunately, usually what ends up happening is we pray at nighttime with the kids, right? And then him and I, sometimes we do our prayer times different in the morning, and that's something that we personally need to work on. But these are the things that you need to make sure that are right with your relationship with God first too, that you're reading, you're studying, you're spending time in prayer, and asking for his guidance, obviously. Now, things that you can do with your spouse, these are some action items, right? Talk to your spouse about praying together, maybe doing a Bible study together. We have a faith group that meets every couple weeks, which I love, because then I know that we're learning some of the same things, and then we can easily talk about that, right? Or make sure to have an appointment, on your way home from church, talk about the sermon together, right? Ask each other weekly what you're learning. But this is part of that communication, because if you're on the same page and you're leaving church, it might be easy to say hey, today I heard this in the sermon and this is how it made me feel. What did you think? But it's an easy, maybe soft way to open the door to having a conversation about the spiritual walk, or what they're learning, or how they interpreted what that message was. Because I know sometimes we can both hear the same thing and interpret totally different. Okay, so number 1 is relationship with your God, and I gave you some action items to do that. Every one of these, I'm going to try to give you some action items, some things to do to keep you on the same page. And also because I'm a type A person, and I want action item things to do. Like, okay, this is great, you're filling me with a bunch of information. Now, how can I actually implement it? So every one of these, I'm going to try to give you some action items. All right, so that was number 1. Are you ready for number 2? The second priority is your marriage, okay? After your relationship with God, the second thing has to be a priority is your marriage. Now, I am going to give you an example that I just heard actually a few weeks ago from a friend. She said when they were in marriage counseling, they were Catholic, and the priest said to her and her fiance, if you guys, or he said to her, the wife, if you were in the boat and your husband and your kid fall overboard and you can only save one, who do you save? And she said, instinctively, she said, my child. And he said, wrong. You save your spouse. And that was like a knife to the heart. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, but like my spouse would want me to save my child, right? But the point wasn't who are you gonna let drown, right? The point is, who are you putting first in your marriage, especially after you have children? And this is super hard. And this is where, unfortunately, I'm having friends who are struggling with their marriage because they are putting their kids first, right? They tend to do the activity switch. And so what happens is there becomes separation between them and their spouse, right? So your marriage has to come second, all right? So what are some action items that you can do to make sure that your marriage is second? And the first thing is date nights. And I know date nights are hard, especially if you have young children. And I'm not saying you always have to go out, you don't have to spend a lot of money, but our goal is at least once a month we get out of the house for a date night. Once a month we get out of the house. So I recommend at the beginning of the month, you schedule it before anything else gets scheduled in your month. That's what we try to do. The other thing is having mini date nights with each other throughout the week, just having a time to watch a half-an-hour TV show together, or having a half an hour one night a week to sit down and just chat. Say, hey, how's your week going? What's going on? How's work? You know, just those little check-in points. Maybe you can both sit down and have, you know, cookies and milk together, or carrots and milk if you're if you're trying to eat healthy. But something where you guys can sit down and block out time to talk. One of the things my husband and I started doing is blocking out time weekly just to talk about where we're at with our finances, because finance is a huge thing. And for me, I'm very type A. I like to know, like, okay, all the details. I want us to both be on the same page. And for me, just to have that time, or to look at the week coming ahead, have that time once a week that we know, okay, half an hour, Sunday night, we've got to talk business. Like, what's this week looking like? What's going on with the money? All that kind of stuff. But it helps put you guys on the same page, and it gives you a chance to connect with each other. And that, I think, is huge if you have that time where you can connect with one another. Make sure when your spouse gets home from work, or you get home from work, the first thing you do is you give each other a hug and a kiss. And sometimes that is so hard not to do because you're in the middle of making food, your kids are constantly needing something. But if you can make it a point when your spouse first gets home, give him a hug and a kiss and welcome him home, that I think will go by leaps and bounds. I know for my husband, it helps just kind of take off the initial stress, because immediately following, the kids are like screaming and running around like crazy, and that stress just throws him through the roof. So I try to make a point, I'm not always perfect at it, but I try to make a point to make sure hug and kiss when he first gets home from work. The other thing that is huge, and this will actually go into the family category, which I will talk about here in a minute, is spending time, it's called couch time, with your spouse. And the idea here is to do it, 5 or 6 nights a week. But couch time, where you and your husband sit on the couch, it can be just for 5 minutes, but where you connect together. Just ask, how's your day? What's going on? How are things going? You can talk about whatever you want. You don't have to talk about anything. You can just sit together. But having that time and letting your kids see you together and connecting together is huge. So those are the things. The other thing that is hard with marriage that you need to be mindful of putting your marriage first, is when you and your spouse are talking and a kid comes in and they want to interrupt. They just start talking. And you naturally, well, at least I do naturally, respond to my child. And that drives my husband bananas. He's like, I was talking to you. And so I have to be consciously aware of making sure that when him and I are in a conversation and a kid comes in, we've taught them to put their hand on our arm if you want to interrupt and talk to me. And then I will put my hand over yours and acknowledge that you're there. And when we are done speaking or have a break in the conversation, then I can address you. And like I said, my kids aren't perfect at it, and I'm not perfect at it either, but that's what we try to do, to show my husband that respect, and for us to, so they know too that the marriage comes first. And then my husband tries to do the same thing for me, right? It goes both ways. But those are the things that we try to do to make sure that the spouse comes first, right? Because remember, your marriage came before your children, okay? The marriage comes first, and so you've got to put that before the children. Number 3 then is family. First was your relationship with God. Second was your relationship with your spouse, your marriage. And the third was your family. So again, this is talking about I'm going to go back to that couch time example. This is going to be about leaving a legacy for your children. What kind of marriage do you want your child to be part of when they become an adult? Because what they see happening in their home is what they are going to expect to be as normal. And I feel like our job as a parent is to make sure to set our kids up for success the best way possible. And marriage is a huge, huge decision. And it's one of those decisions that I want my kids to know exactly what it is that they should be looking for in a future spouse. So you want to make sure that your marriage comes first. Maybe you do that couch time as a couple so your kids can see what that relationship is to look like when your spouse gets home. The hug and a kiss is showing your children the affection, right? But the other thing is then, what do you do as a family? So what kind of family activities, what kinds of family things can you do to show your child what a good marriage should look like? So some things that we try to do is, the book reading at night. Instead of him reading and then I get some work done or do the dishes or get ready for tomorrow, and then I go up and I snuggle, and then he goes down and does his workout. Like, that's parent swapping, right? And I unfortunately get in that trap a lot because I feel like I said before, I'm a type A person. I've got a to-do list. I want to get through it. I want to get things done. And he sometimes has to remind me, look, I don't want to be a single parent where we're just swapping things. He goes, I want to do stuff as a family. And so we try to make sure, 3 or 4 nights a week, because weekends are a little different, but that we're doing book time and snuggle time together as a family, right? We try to also make sure that once a week we're doing something fun with the kids. It doesn't have to be extravagant. It doesn't have to be like over the top, but I try to make sure that we're doing something outside of the box that we don't normally do with the children. At least once a week, something small, but if not once a month, something that's a little more fun. Like we try to go ice skating or bowling or take them roller skating, or like they just had a daddy-daughter dance. Now that's not a family thing. But that gives you some ideas of what are some of the things that we try to do with the kids. We're gonna have a special Valentine's dinner with the kids on Saturday. So those kinds of things are ideas of things that you can do with the family so they can see what a marriage looks like and see how the whole family unit is supposed to work. And so those are things that hopefully you can use those activities, even family game night. If you're not gonna read, maybe just having some game night or having a family show. I remember growing up, like on Sunday nights, we used to always watch Seventh Heaven together, and we did that as a family. And so it was something that we did as a family. So even if you have a TV show or something that you guys watch together as a family routinely, those are creating memories and legacies and things that your kids will take into their adulthood and their future marriages. Okay, like I said, I just want to make sure I'm covering everything. Okay, are you ready? So number 1 was your relationship with God. Number 2 was your marriage. Number 3 was your family. Number 4, everything else. Everything else. Church, school, friends, committees that you're on, kids' activities, everything else comes last. This is, I think, sometimes the hardest part. But if anything is threatening, numbers 1 through 3, you need to take a serious look and possibly cut. I'm going to say it again. If anything is threatening, numbers 1, 2, and 3 that I first discussed, you need to take a serious look at it and possibly cut it. It is so easy to be busy. It's so easy to justify, well, I'm serving the church in this way. Well, my kid wants to be involved in this sport. And I want to be on the committee. This mom asked me to help out. And it's great. All those things are good. None of that is bad. It's bad when it comes before 1, 2, or 3, and especially if 1, 2, or 3 is in trouble. If your marriage is in trouble, if your kids are falling away from you, if you're having an issue and 1, 2, and 3 are not solid, you need to seriously sit down and look at your schedule and try to axe as much as you can and put in activities and things that will actually help strengthen 1, 2, and 3 first. If you ask most successful people what has helped them have a successful life, it's not going to be about the dollars in the bank. It's going to be about the relationships in their life. So I want you to really hone in and think about, is there anything right now in my life that is threatening 1, 2, or 3? And if so, then maybe some hard decisions have to be made. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. But if you are in a situation where your marriage is in trouble, or your relationship with God is in trouble, or your kids are having some serious issues at school, emotional issues, they're injured, they're hurt, whatever it is, maybe tell someone on the committee, I need to back off for a little bit. I will be back, but I got to back off for a little bit. Or same with church. Say, I can't volunteer right now. I've got to take care of whatever. Okay? You got to make sure that you are putting your priorities first. And I think this is the area where it's easiest to let slide sometimes, because we don't want to let other people down. I mean, for some reason, we're okay with letting our family down, but not other people. And I don't think subconsciously we think about it that way. I think it's a subconscious thing. But I really want you to be aware of what else might be taking precedence in your life, or taking away time and priorities that are just out of line. So yeah, for this one, hold on, I'm reading to make sure that I'm good here. Oh, okay. So for this one, I think really if you're struggling with something, your to-dos is you need to write down all the extras, right? Make a schedule of your life. What do you do every day? And write out some things that maybe are stressing you out or that are causing some problems. The other thing, this one's kind of scary, ask your kids. Ask your kids how they view your marriage and your relationship as a family. Now, you have to be careful. Depending on the age of your child, you might get varied answers, and you have to kind of take into consideration their age and what they want. For example, I have young girls, 8, 5, and 3. If I were to ask them, what do you think of our marriage, or what do you think of my time? I think sometimes they would be like, well, I want to be with you all the time, 24/7. And they would never be satiated, right? I mean, some kids just want all of your time. But maybe try to ask some specific questions like, how do you feel mommy and daddy relate to one another? Do you think we fight too often? Do you see us hug and kiss? Do you think we love each other? Do you enjoy the time we spend together as a family? Do you wish we spent more time together as a family? What kind of activities would you like us to do together as a family? I think it'd be really helpful if you did that with your children. And again, then discuss what they say with your spouse. And some of it might be in left field, and you kind of have to just take it with a grain of salt, because unfortunately most of us have to work, right? So we can't spend 24/7 with our kids, but ask them their opinion. So first of all, I want to thank you so much for just hanging out with me. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for listening to these top 4 priorities. Like I said, you will get an email with some follow-up with some of this and some questions that I'd love to hear back from you. And if you have any other comments or questions for me, please, by all means, let me know, because I can't wait to hear from you. You guys have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.